You're listening to Flaunt. Find your sparkle and create a life you love after infidelity or betrayal. A podcast for women who've been betrayed by their intimate partner and want to turn their devastation into an invitation to reclaim themselves and their worth. Tune in weekly so you can start making sense of it all and learn how to be okay on the inside, no matter what goes on the outside. Download your free Betrayal Recovery Toolkit at betrayalrecoveryguide.com.
Healing from infidelity. Oh my gosh, that is such a big one. What does it really mean? And what are some of the tools that you can use to heal? And how does it work when you're healing as an individual versus healing as a couple? Today, I have Todd Creager, and he is a marriage and sex therapist. He spends his time helping partners in long-term relationships really learn how to create passionate, alive, and nourishing interactions. And what I love about that isn't that what we kind of all want, especially after going through the infidelity journey? And what are those hurdles that we have to jump over in order to get here? And what are the tools that we can use to jump over some of those hurdles? Today, we are going to talk about a multitude of things, but in particular, we're going to talk about EMDR because everybody talks about EMDR, but we're going to take a deeper dive, and internal family systems, also known as IFS. We're going to talk about those two modalities and how they can help you heal from infidelity. So whether it is with this partner or another partner, you too can have the relationship that you want. So welcome to the show, Todd. I'm really happy to have this conversation.
It's great to see you again and talk with you again.
Yes,
Great.
it is. It is. Okay, so let's kind of start from the beginning. Wow, infidelity happens. I know personally.
A lot.
Oh yeah, huge
And
shock.
you know personally. Yes.
I do. Yeah, huge shock to the system. How do I feel better? Everybody talks about EMDR. How does that work? What does that mean? When can I get it? Do I just jump in and have a session and it's all over? Break that down for us and let's find our way through.
Well, actually, the reason I did EMDR to begin with is that, as you had mentioned, I work with people and help them rekindle passion. So what I found is when I was working with couples where one of the partners were molested as a child, and their sexuality was stifled, that was not an area where I was particularly successful. So I tried a few different modalities, and they didn't work all that great. I won't go into what didn't work, but then I decided to take the plunge back in 2015, maybe 2015, and I said, let me do this EMDR stuff. I've been hearing about it for years. I resisted it because it's a lot of training, and it is costly, to some degree, relatively. And I did it, and I started working with people that were molested as children. And I remember I worked with a woman, and in 4 sessions, the husband came back to me after 4 sessions of working with her and said, I know what you guys did, but my wife doesn't go to bed in granny pants anymore. Now, that was basically saying that she wasn't needing to protect herself because she was able to move from the sexuality of a molested child to a sexuality of a healthy adult who is taking her sexuality back. And, so that's how it started. But then I started using it for many, many things. I work with people from all kinds of problems, from car accidents to, I was told by my dad I was a failure child, and it stuck with me. And that's why I've become a workaholic to, and helping them heal from those moments. But of course, a good majority of the people I see, individuals and couples, are dealing with infidelity. And so the whole idea of EMDR came from, and it was actually Francine Shapiro, who was the founder of it, just found herself as she was dealing with cancer, walking through a field and thinking about the cancer, noticing her eyes going back and forth. It was kind of spontaneous, but she explored it and she investigated, and one thing led to another. And she started to realize that somehow traumatic material, when you stimulate both sides of the brain, which you can do with eye movements, helps the brain move through the past so you can be back in the present. Because we all have negative memories or painful memories, but if they're not traumatic, if your picnic gets rained out, your brain moves through it. I mean, you
Right.
feel bad and then you don't move bad. But with trauma, whether it's a big trauma all at once, they call it the big T trauma, or complex trauma, little T trauma, where you're getting these little pings, like my client who was told he was a failure child a lot.
Hmm.
That's also traumatic. The brain doesn't move through it, and it stays stuck in the amygdala part of the brain, and it doesn't move through it. And what this bilateral stimulation does is it gives the brain a chance to work through it. And it's a little more complicated than that, but basically it's helping the brain break old connections that don't work and create new connections that do, with those healthy parts of you that are already there, that could
Hmm.
connect with the traumatic memories and all that. And so when I work with infidelity, I have both people, right? So you have the person who was betrayed, who not only is being traumatized by the discovery of the betrayal, but all the other times they were betrayed or abandoned or made to feel unattractive or not good enough or unimportant, all those parts can get triggered too. So I found that the EMDR would help the partner to process, especially some of the earlier memories. We could get to the current situation in a minute, but they start to realize that they could be in the moment, and now they don't have to be triggered from all the past stuff, even
Hmm.
though they might be still triggered from the present stuff. And then with the betrayed person, the reason the person cheated also was because of something. It's
Yes.
oftentimes something in the past. And when we could try to understand, I haven't talked about internal family systems yet, but when we try to understand, what went on, what were those traumatic memories, and help to process them, uh, it frees them of having to do these behaviors that are hurtful to themselves and their partner, to their families. And I found it to be really, really, really effective to help people heal. The only thing I'll add to that is I don't expect EMDR to work with the partner who was cheated on for the like I don't expect to do EMDR and then the partner who was cheated suddenly trust when their partner hasn't done enough of the work. The EMDR doesn't do that. It doesn't make you feel trusting
Yes.
when it's not time. So that's why I'm saying, with that, I understand that the relationship has to feel safe before the person could process and move through the trauma
Yeah. And I'm really
itself.
glad you went there because I think, I think, again, personally and with the people that I work with, there is such a desire to feel better. I have to fix this. I have to take care of it now. And it's really imperative to understand you don't just forget it. You don't just move
Mm,
into this trusting state. There's so
no,
much else going on. And whether your
yeah,
partner, yeah, it would harm you again intentionally or inadvertently, for a while, that hypervigilance does keep you safe. And we want to stay
yes,
safe. So,
yes,
yeah,
exactly. And you might want, with your rational mind, all you want to have it back to good again, whatever that means. Typically, it wasn't all that great, and it can get even better. But you can't return to good feelings when there's other parts of you that know better. Like there's
right,
other parts of you that know it's not time. That person that betrayed me hasn't done enough of the work. That the behavior hasn't changed all that much yet. It doesn't happen in a minute, and so we have to trust our own system.
yes.
And of course, my job is to help it along and to accelerate that process, but at the same time, respect the person who isn't ready to trust yet. It's a
Mm-hmm.
good reason for it.
Mm-hmm. And how invaluable to have somebody with you to be able to mirror back sometimes, like, wow, I'm seeing this, and the way
Mhm.
you're feeling is normal. It makes
Yes,
sense that you are not trusting right now. You are in the middle of this process, and we're not there yet, and that's okay.
yes. And the person who cheated, their agenda is they want their partner to just get over it because I'm not going to do that anymore. And oftentimes They might not even do it anymore, but that's still, we haven't got to the underlying issues. And I go, yeah, that would be, there's a part of you that of course wants her to get over it. If it's a he, that she, it could be either one, right? But just
Right.
for language sake, you just want her to get over it. Of course you do.
Hmm.
But that will never work if you try to rush it along. And you need to appreciate the part of her that needs to feel protected. And she's doing it by having that wall up, and it's necessary right now. And you're going to have to just find the patience. And so that's some of the stuff that has to happen.
Hmm.
And then, but there is a point where the EMDR allows the betrayed partner to trust a relationship that is now safe. Caveat that the one who betrayed has done the work and it's really shifted. But then there's always parts of the other person that still might want to hold on. And that's where internal family systems can be really helpful.
Yes. And
So,
before we move into the IFS, because I think that's really fascinating, I also want to point out, excuse me, and get your commentary on when you said, and again, when the, it can go either way, but when the man cheats, he wants his partner to get over it. And he will say, and he will mean with every fiber of his being, I made a mistake. I will never do that again. My husband's words were, I am eternally sorry. I will eternally regret this. And he did in that moment. And yet, still, it will not last unless work is done. And I want to talk about a little bit between it's not that we don't trust them, it's not that they're not lying, it's that you have to have that desire to change coupled with the right kind of support to help you dig deeper and figure out why did I even go down this path in the first place?
you got it. You got it. And sometimes I got to put on my salesman hat because that person wants, again, the partner to just get over it. And my job is to sell them on going slow. Like, really, this is not cotton candy I'm selling. But they have to understand that it's in their best interest to go deeper and to understand that you don't just cheat. It doesn't just happen out of a vacuum. This cheating happens in the context of numbers of factors, not and not excluding some early childhood factors sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is encouraged to get really curious, not to just say, I'm not doing it anymore. I won't do it anymore. Yeah, of course you're scared to death. You're going to lose your partner. Of course you're saying that. And you
Right.
probably mean it in every fiber of your body. But that behavior has communicated something to you and to the rest of the world that is interested that something else is going on. And you got to find out what that communication is. It
Yeah.
wasn't just the cheating. You took a person, your partner, and maybe you have kids or whether you do or don't, but people that were meaningful to you and you sabotage it for that. We can't just scratch the surface of that. That will never, ever work. Not if you want something real that will make, and so I have to sell them on it. Like, this is how it works. You have to take some time to do the work just like if someone's sick physically, maybe has, let's say, even they have had some issues because of inactivity,
Right.
and so they start to walk. I have a client that said, I have done nothing for all these years. Now I'm walking 30 minutes twice a week. I said, that's zero to
Perfect.
that is great, but he's not gonna get rid of all these symptoms. It takes a while. You have to be consistent, right? It's the same thing
Yes.
with emotional wounds. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes time and it is the cumulative impact. And it's frustrating for both partners.
Mhm.
It's really frustrating. I mean, it's been 8 years for my husband and I. He sees his therapist twice a month. He does a lot of deep dives
It's
still.
great.
He is a lot different. And yet still there is more. There's more to unpack
Always
because
more.
yeah,
Hmm.
he had big T and little t trauma. You don't just unring that bell. 15 years worth of significant trauma does not get undone in a bi-monthly session in a year and a half. It just doesn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And there are tools such as the EMDR and IFS that could truly quicken it.
Yes.
My guess is about him that you started seeing changes as he got serious in much shorter time,
Oh,
so
right
that you
away.
could have you could have this relationship. The fact that it never, I mean, we could always grow more and heal better. So I don't want the listeners here to think that you're not going to even have any kind of decent relationship unless you go, years and years. It doesn't have to be that way, but it does take still some patience and some courage,
Hmm.
and having maybe someone who, like myself, who's really going to be an effective guide and facilitator to help you through
Yes.
that.
And thank you for saying that because I feel like sometimes I speak too much on the other side. I want people to know it is a life shift. It's
It's
not
a life
just a
shift.
tiny
Yeah.
little blip, but you're
No.
absolutely right. I mean, that first year was really horrendous. And
Yeah.
I still saw growth in that first year. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stuck through the first
Right.
year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And our lives get better through
Yes.
that. And that's why I look at infidelity as a wake up call. And I know on some of the comments on YouTube sometimes, even a lot lately, but for a while I was getting a lot of, "You're a cheater apologist. You are
Right.
just trying to defend them." I go, "No, I'm not. What they did was hurtful, harmful to themselves, even more, as to the partner and to the family. But to say they're bad people, no, I don't see it that way. I've immersed myself in this stuff. I've learned that's a superficial, reactionary, understandably so, way of dealing
Yes.
with it. And usually it's people that were cheated on that will say that to me because they're coming from their own pain. Maybe they live with a partner that said, just get over it, and they didn't go any deeper. That might be true too, but
Hmm.
they're coming from their experience. My discovery is when people do this work, they can transform and they could heal and they could become really safe people if they're willing
Yes.
to do the work, even safer than the random person out there that hasn't cheated yet, because
Yes.
they're aware and they're
Yes.
growing.
Yes. And that makes a world of difference. And I think on that note, it's a good segue into talking about internal family systems, how that works, the tie from family of origin to your current family, moving through this, all of those dynamics. And what does that have to do with it? And how can people learn more? And just let's take a deep dive into that.
Yeah, now EMDR people, they talk about parts all the time too. They
Yes.
talk about parts work. I have found the internal family systems is a language that agreed with me, and the more I got into it, the more it just worked. And then I've spent a lot of my time recently developing ways to meld the two. Now, the thing about EMDR, I'll tell you a story. Okay, so I got trained back in 2015, and after the first weekend, they said, "You're ready to do it, but don't do it with people that have complex trauma."
No.
But I was enthused. I was enthusiastic. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday was the weekend. On Monday evening, my client came in who definitely was abused by his brother almost every day of his life from ages 3 to 7. And I started doing this work with him. And he called me up on Wednesday of that week and said, he was the CEO of his own company, a big company. And he said, "I'm useless at work, can't work, not doing anything, just kind of I'm a vegetable."
Wow.
I went, I should have listened to the guy and held back. He wasn't the client I should have done this on yet. And so I undid we undid the damage. We were able to do that. I just told them to basically put that stuff we did away in a little container. We call it containment, and to get back and not worry about that. I actually had a chance, not then, but much later. He came back to me,
Good.
and I was very aware that not all his part. Now, I'm talking internal family systems language. Internal family systems says that we were born with a self, this potential, with this healthy self. And talk about the 8 C's. I never remember all the 8 C's, but it's There's a part of us that's inherently calm, courageous, connected, creative, has clarity, confidence. It's about as far as I could go.
Okay.
And we have that in us.
Yeah.
But we also have we get wounded. And these wounds, we can't, like this man, the CEO, couldn't live from his shame and his wounds. He wouldn't have been able to be this successful CEO. So what we do is we exile it to a part of our psyche. And that's what he did until I stirred it up without proper thought and without proper treatment. And we have these protective parts. And these protective parts are either the managers that keep it at bay, like his manager part was the one that was out there being successful, making money, and it was keeping, in a way, the parts that felt inadequate, not good enough, shameful, out of his system. And he was
Yes.
very steadfast in that. And there's also another kind of protective part called the firefighter that distracts us. So he was preventing it, but then there's when the wound even starts to come up a little, they could distract them. That's when people do infidelity or gambling or self-harm or many other things,
Yeah.
right? Shopping,
Drinking.
drinking, eating too much. It's all firefighter stuff. And so it's great language. So we have the self, we have these protective parts, the managers and the firefighters, and we have they're protecting us from the deeper wounds of feeling not good enough, abandoned, unsafe, on and on and on. So if I just go and just try to do the EMDR like with this man, his protective parts were not on board yet. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm not going to do that. It was not ready yet. So when you take IFS and you combine it with EMDR, now what you're doing is you're recognizing this person has parts that have been there maybe a long time, some longer than others, but he might have, he learned to hide that shameful part maybe when he was 4. So he could get
Yes.
out there and not be made fun of by other people or be ignored by his parents, which they did emotionally. So he learned to hide. And that hiding part was a manager. I'll hide that part of me. And I never got permission from that hiding part, that protective part, to work with that wounded part. And
Interesting.
so when we learn with internal family systems to respect all the parts, all of them, you start to welcome it. Like, of course you don't want to work on this. Tell me what that's about. And, you have the self begin to have a
Yes.
relationship with the wounded part, the protective part. And at some point, you will ask the protective part, is it okay with you? Do I have permission? Can you soften a bit? Trust me. So we could access the part of you that you're trying to protect. And then we listen. No, no, I'm not. Well, then there's more work to do with the protective part. You don't start working with the wound until you get unanimous yes. And you do. You do get that usually and quickly, usually. But when you
Mm.
do, now everyone's on board. Now you can do the
Yes.
processing. So that now working with infidelity, yeah, we have, let's say, the betrayed person. And I want to help them heal. Let's say the person who betrayed has done a lot of the work,
Hmm.
but again, I'm just using the male and the female just for language sake, but I have women that cheat too. But in this case, let's say it's the male and the female. It's like, I'm not ready to have sex with him. And let's say
Hmm.
they've been working on it for quite a while and he's done his work. He's been to therapy. He's got it. He's showing some good signs. It's like you know, we have to address the part of her that's trying to protect her and get to know it and welcome it, learn it, and see at some point, can you back down a bit and take some chances and try to help that part be on board. And
Yes.
then we could process the worst fears that they have. So that's a little bit of why that works so well together.
It does.
And ultimately, with the EMDR, helping the person get in the present and
Hmm.
recognize that this is not a year ago. This is now. You
Yes.
know.
Yeah. And one of the things I also think is so fascinating with like IFS and the different parts, there's me and all of my parts, and then there's my husband and all of his parts. And sometimes we're coming together, and who am I talking to? Am I talking to a protector? Who am I approaching him
Exactly.
as? And it gets complex, but just having sometimes the languaging, having that understanding, then it's not that, like in the example you gave, it's not necessarily that I don't want to have sex with you. It's there is a part of me that is not wanting to do that. And then your partner understands, yes, there is a part of you that is willing, and there is a part of you that says no. And I think it allows both people to soften because
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
easy to just be triggered. Of course, you're triggered. Everybody's triggered. When this gets discovered, everybody's protective parts come out.
It's very fascinating. I have a couple I've worked with, and this was not about infidelity, but they haven't had a sexual relationship since very early in their relationship. They're a young, attractive couple, but not happening, and they want to have kids. And he says something real interesting as we were ending a session, and he said, "I think I'd be more attracted to my wife if she was more rejecting and pushing me away." And I thought that was very fascinating. So
Interesting.
the next week we looked at, so let's talk about the part of you, and it got to the point where there was a part of him that felt like he always had to prove himself and that didn't feel good enough,
Hmm.
and that he got activated, the sexual libido got activated to prove himself. But once, so there was that part. So until we deal with that part, having a lovely, kind, caring wife was created a sexual break for him. It's fascinating. So doing a
Wow.
little internal family systems were really helpful there, and so yeah,
Yeah. And
it's
then it
amazing.
depersonalizes it enough. It's not, I want to hold this over my husband's head forever. I am never going to let it go. It's, you know what? There is
Right.
a part of me that wants to keep him on the hook. And then it's
That's right.
easier to get curious because I'm not at fault. I'm not broken. There's just a part of me that thinks this is true.
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
It's just it's very liberating. It's very kind. It's very
Yes.
kind. Um, I just had a woman earlier today. She says, the IFS, again, her husband didn't cheat, but he had severe issues with alcohol. And she says, understanding my parts as well as his parts, I
Yes.
kind of soften. I don't get on his case. I don't get so mean. And he said, yes. And you know what? Because of that, I'm feeling safer and safer with her. And I'm not saying that I'm taking full responsibility for my drinking, but it makes it easier not to drink that I'm in a relationship now where I feel safe. So it's just kind of an upward spiral.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
And I had
yeah.
mentioned earlier, even family of origin and current family. I, in a broad sweeping statement, will make this broad sweeping statement, realizing it doesn't apply to everybody. However, I fully believe that the vast majority of people who cheat do so because there is some traumatic thing in their past. There is something that is not addressed. There is some problem. There is, like you said, it just doesn't happen in a vacuum. And
Yep.
when that traumatic thing happened, oftentimes as a result of childhood. And
I'm with you
okay.
100%.
Okay, good, good, good. And then we have things like culture and society and beliefs and what a woman should be and what a man should be. And it just creates so many layers. And part of
Mhm.
this work, and why, like my husband, he says, I'm going to do therapy forever because it helps you understand all the different layers. And with his traumatic background, now he's understanding his mom's activated, traumatized parts. She is a survivor of sexual abuse. Of course, she
Mm,
parented him in this different way. So again,
right.
it's not just saying, "Yay, we love people who cheat and harm." But we say, I have compassion and I have understanding, and it makes sense to me, and it's not personal, but then we're
Right.
all wiser and we can stay safer.
That's right. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Like that's
And
a big soliloquy there. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's great. You couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
And When it comes down to it, I think that most of the problems we have, not only in our personal lives, but I'll even see in the macro world when it comes to wars and politics and everything, have to do with people not looking inside of themselves and recognizing some wounded parts and protective parts. I think it's all about, I know it's all about that. It's all of this. This is
Yeah.
like this is it. This is it. And
Yeah.
so if the people watching could really be curious, which is one of the 8 C's of the self, about when you've done something harmful to yourself or somebody else, or if somebody else has done it, if you could look from the perspective of what is that doing for you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that people that commit crime shouldn't go to jail. I'm not saying that at all. I think we got to protect society. I think we got to do all those things. But it still doesn't take away from the truth is that the reason people do whatever they do is because of some part of them that is trying to protect them from something on some
Right.
level. It's just all
Yeah.
true.
And it doesn't mean that we have to stay in the relationship. I
No.
think relationships can be extraordinarily better after going through an infidelity journey because it forces both people, if they are willing, to actually do a deeper level of work and to figure out how to relate better. That said, if your partner is not willing, and if you are not willing, you don't have to be willing.
No.
You
You
can get
don't.
out, you can do your own
Yep.
stuff later.
There, we're all so, we have to listen to our soul. We have to listen to our heart. And just because we're saying that this exists doesn't mean a person who is betrayed has to stay in the relationship. We're not saying that at all.
Yeah.
Look, and a person who did the betrayal, if they're not willing to do the work, I just say to the person who was betrayed, just know that there's no reason to trust that it won't happen again or something like it, or, and yeah, look, one of the things that I see too, which is really good with people that have been betrayed is they wake up to the parts of them that they ignored, the
Yes.
part of me that needs, the part of me that was overly adaptive,
Yeah.
the part of me that accepted you not being present for 22 years of our marriage much. But then what got me going is when you cheated. But
Mhm.
then I have to realize it wasn't just about the cheating, it was about you not showing up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's when a person who's betrayed realizes that, I'm thinking of a couple I'm working with now, or at least I work with them mostly separately. And it was very different therapy. For him is to help him deal with his self-absorbing traits and to get to be kinder. For her is to help her recognize the traits that the parts of her that she overlooked, the parts that had healthy needs and needed to be taken care of and needed attending to. Well, got
Mhm.
really clear for her it was time to move on.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and
And
yeah.
and you don't have to decide in an instant. You don't have to decide the moment you discover. You don't have to
No.
decide the first 6 months or a year, even if you're into things 6 years down the road and you realize we are on different paths. I do not want this relationship. That's okay. It's all okay.
It's all okay.
Hmm.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So something just what you were talking about, like the overlooked parts, because that was my wake up call. I felt, I mean, clearly I'm perfect, aren't we all? And clearly, since he was the cheater, it was his problem. And
Right.
it took a while for me to wrap my head around what do you mean I need to look at me too? I didn't cheat. What do you mean I didn't do this? And that was a real shift breakdown moment when, okay, maybe he has, quote, more problems because he did the cheating, but it's an invitation for me to, wow, that was an interesting place to get to.
Yes. Yes.
Is that
And
hard for most of the people you see?
it is oftentimes
Yeah.
because the mentality is I'm the victim. He's the one that, or she's the one that did this to me. Let's shift it up a little bit and just fix her. and help us see why she cheated, and
Yeah.
everything's okay. And
Yeah.
it isn't that way because, again, the person who betrayed is 100% responsible for their choices. But you're right. We're not perfect. We all have parts that have been neglected.
Hmm.
All of us do.
Yeah.
And this is why life never ends. It's good. It's great. Life is generous. It helps us wake up to these parts of us that we didn't love enough before. We didn't know to love enough. Love to me is the same as paying attention to it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I like the woman I just mentioned. She started to realize how little he gave her and how she just went with it. So she would be the one that takes the kids on vacations. He wouldn't even come. Like they
Wow.
wouldn't even go on vacations together. And I said, and you thought that was okay? She goes, it's just what I had to do. But then, and
Yeah.
this is something I want to say because this will resonate with some of the people watching. She started to say, so what's wrong with me that I stayed with him? What's
Hmm.
wrong with me that I stayed with him all those years? And I knew better. And there were red flags, and I paid. And what kind of person doesn't pay attention to the red flags? And I said, what's the part of you that wanted to overlook those things? And
Yes.
she said, well, I just wanted an intact family. I said, there's nothing dishonorable about that. You wanted an intact family. You couldn't afford to look at that stuff. You weren't ready to look at that stuff. You weren't even consciously not looking at that stuff. There's a part of you that wanted this family to work as it was. So you overlooked it. And
Yeah.
so now there's a party that's beating yourself up for it. But
Hmm.
that part of you, it's not really very wise to the heart and guts of life. It's just now looking at things now versus
Right.
then. And
Right.
so, can you find, this, how do you feel? And this is an IFS question. You go, how do you feel towards the part of you that stayed in the marriage? Well, really, I hate that part. I go, well, can you soften a little bit to make some space? And then ultimately they get to the point where they understand that that part was trying to protect them from a broken family.
Of
And they didn't
course.
want that. So even that, there's a compassionate, curious stance.
Hmm.
And we start to recognize that even though we have these critical parts, that we really don't let those parts hijack us anymore because there's reasons why we do what we do. So yeah,
Right.
that's all part of the work.
Mhm. I appreciate that explanation so much because we do want good things. Because I want to be loved, because I want an intact family, because I want to raise my children with money for soccer lessons and ballet lessons. Because, like, there's
Yeah,
10,000 reasons
right.
why. And it's okay to say I'm not ready to deal with it. I feel like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
in my case again, and in the case of so many of the people that I work with, the moment they find out is actually a really good moment. If they would have found out earlier, they wouldn't have been ready to deal with it.
Yep. Timing. Trust in the timing. I know it doesn't feel that way sometimes, but the more we get into this work, the more we start to go, there was a timing. It's not like my life was a farce. It's much more complex than that.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, we take solace in knowing that, there's reasons we did what we did. And okay, I even people, I say, well, what's the party that wanted to stay? And the
Yeah.
person will say, they'll listen, they'll ask, and the part goes, he used to make me feel really good. And I didn't want to give up hope that I feel that good again. I've never felt that good like I used to feel with my husband. And so when that happened, I just couldn't give it up. That makes sense. You
Yeah.
wanted to feel good like you used to. So there's all kinds of understanding that we start to have as we go through this. And then we get freed up to really make decisions based on what's really true now.
Hmm. And even like that, making decisions. one thing I hear over and over again is, what if I leave him? And what if I never find anybody else again? What if this was the best it could ever be? And again, being able to talk to that part. What part of you is afraid? What part of
Part
you
is
is
afraid.
afraid that you won't find
Yeah.
this? And how
Yeah.
how to talk to that part, again, not by squishing it and saying you never come up again, but getting
Right.
curious.
And the other thing I do in those situations at some point is we do this, like you said, is wonderful, is tuning into that part. And then we do an EMDR, something called a future template, where you imagine what's the worst possible scenario. And typically it's like, well, I'm all alone and I go, maybe I shouldn't have even divorced my partner. At least I had somebody, even though he cheated on me 7 years, or whatever the case may be. And you help them see that and we process it. And suddenly after a while, they're like, no, I'm good. No, no, I'm good about the future. It's not going to happen that way, And they're able to recognize and process it from the inside out.
Mhm.
So
The other thing I really wanted to talk about is, you and I have both used the term process a lot. And a lot of people use the term process. I need to process this. I need to process it. What do you think processing really means? Because I think sometimes that's a vague notion for people. I'm doing the work, I'm processing. And then they think, I don't even know
great
what that
question.
is.
That's a great question. Processing, and I would say EMDR uses the word processing and IFS uses the word unburdening. But what they have in common is that you get to experience the part, you get to experience it, and that part gets to be done. They get done. It's like because
Yeah.
they. I'll give you an example of just the client I had right before I'm on this with you. This is a man who cheated. He came in because he cheated, and he cheated. This is not the first person he cheated on, but he really wanted this. He wants this relationship to work, and we've been doing some work. It's been great. He was. He was he had a mom who couldn't handle him and a dad who didn't want him, and he was in 3 foster care situations, and all this kind of stuff. So he felt very unwanted, very unloved. So we talked about like how we just started getting into how he said I can get really, really angry at times. And I go, well, what is that angry part trying to do? Little IFS language. I don't know, it wants to make sure I'm perfect. And I
Hmm.
said, well, what is that? What do you think that's about? Where does it come from? And go inside and notice where that might come from. Whatever comes up. He goes, well, what came up for me, I was young and I had 2 cousins and my mother's mother, my grandmother, who was not a nice person, would always, my cousins came from family. They were all too healthy. And my family was really like the dark sheep, the black sheep of the family.
Yep.
And so she would always tell me, I'm not as good as them. She would always show it to me, and I go, okay, have that, and we focused that with EMD on that memory. So I said, process it. What came up for you? He said, anger. Now that when you say process, that angry little boy, first of all, never experienced the anger. Didn't it was too busy trying to survive. But now he noticed the anger. Believe me, that boy felt anger before, but it was exiled, to use IFS language. But so he feels the anger. I said, okay, notice what the anger wants to do. Whatever it wants to do, you could do it outwardly, you could do it inwardly, and I did the bilateral stimulations with doing it. And I said, what was that like? He goes, I was screaming at my grandmother. And I went, you scream, okay. And then we had him do it again. We followed the EMDR protocol. And then suddenly he said, I'm not feeling as angry. I said, well, that's good. Notice that. And we did it again. And then I said, what came up for you? And he's not doing this this is all happening in EMDR. And he says,
Right.
I went back and took that little boy and I got him out of that situation. And I
Yes.
went, notice that. And anyway, he felt calm. We had a complete resolution of that whole memory. Now, I know that as a man who didn't feel enough, okay, he had an affair when his wife, his girlfriend at the time, uh, got into grad school and couldn't see him enough, triggered his "I'm not enough," and he had an affair.
Yes.
Actually, went back to his previous wife, who always accepted him, and no matter what. So this is an example of processing that part of him that was angry, that felt not good enough. He experienced that little boy that had to be exiled, and was done with it. He's done with that memory. He didn't feel angry. As a matter of fact, he felt compassion towards his mom, who had to live with his mother's mother, because he had a lot of anger towards his mother, but it all resolved in one shot.
Yes.
It was done. That's what it is. You're just done. You have this, you just unravel. That's what processing is. Long answer to that great question, but I wanted to share that just came up
No, and
with
it's
this one
good.
client.
Yeah, because it is the example that helps you understand. And
Yes,
what I want to point out too, the difference with the bilateral stimulation, there's EMDR, there's some different ways to help reprocess memories, but it's a reprocessing of the memory. We have those
yes,
bad memories, and then,
yes,
oh, it gets in our body and we feel nauseous and our shoulders clench and we get a headache, and it's reprocessing it in a healthy way. Very dumbed down, very simplistic. It's processing it in a way that'll help you make sense of it where you stand now, but using the bilateral stimulation, to my understanding, and you can totally correct me here, is it
yeah,
literally moves it to a different place in the brain where it can be processed in a more healthy way. So it won't hijack you.
yeah. That's exactly right. The
Okay.
bilateral stimulation allows you to process traumatic memory like it's not traumatic memory, right? Because
Yeah.
it seems magical, but it really does work. And I've seen these kinds of changes, and he's I could see the changes in him. Just been remarkable. So this was just another level down dealing with this perfectionism, and I'm expecting him to, when I see him, I'll see him in a few weeks. I'm going on vacation, but I expect him to say, "I was even kinder to my subordinate that he works. He's a leader, and I think he'll be easier on them because he doesn't have to be perfect. They don't have to be perfect. So these are the things that these kinds of early memories can give birth to, these kinds of patterns to protect us from. He doesn't want to be seen as inferior. So you
Right.
got to be perfect. Oh, well, now that's done. That memory's done. Are
Yeah.
there more memories? We'll see. But that memory's done, and it's an unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Mm-hmm. So here's another question that I think people might be wondering. Okay, if there's one memory, I can go back and reprocess it. But what if I don't really know what one memory is? What if it's just my whole history, my whole pattern? Is EMDR going to work for me?
It will work because you don't have to have those kinds of memories. A lot of times, people, because of whatever their childhood was like, it's just one um, total foggy, icky thing,
Yeah.
and so we first of all I work with the parts. So there's a part of me that felt this, and sometimes that's an entryway. It's a portal into some memories sometimes, but also there's different aspects of memories. There's sensation, emotion, cognition, and also the visual, auditory. Somebody might only have a feeling. We work with what you
Hmm.
got. You know,
Perfect.
that's all you got. Maybe you have a cognition, a belief, I'm not good enough. That's all you got. We work with that. We see where it goes, and we open to what's coming up. And oftentimes, what's great about EMDR and IFS is you're not working hard. It's a different kind of work. It's like an opening up, and it's a tuning in. And so things oftentimes, sometimes people will have clearer memories, which helps them, but even that's not always necessary. I've helped people process stuff, what happened when they were 9 months old. Well, they don't remember when they were 9 months old, but they have some image, some sense of that. When my mother left me when I was 9 months old, and
Yeah.
I've processed that, and it works. So it's a very fascinating thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is. And what I like how you described it as it's not really work. it's an opening, because I think that's something that sometimes can feel intimidating. People say, I
Hmm.
have an intense job, I'm parenting kids, I've got aging parents, I can't even take care of myself. And the idea of sitting down with the therapist and doing this
Mm.
deep, dark, horrific stuff for an hour
No,
doesn't
it's not
sound
like,
fun. And
yeah.
not
It
it.
actually can be fun.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying every moment of it is fun. You do have to tip your toes into some negative memories, maybe, but the way it works, it becomes fascinating and interesting, and it's like getting to know you more. It's like it's an intimacy, and it can be quite fun, actually, and quite exciting. And I have clients that at first might have had that attitude, now come in looking forward to it, like, okay, let's see what comes up now. And there's more of
Hmm.
an adventurous sense to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think, moving forward into the good, positive relationship, which is what most people want, whether it's with his partner or somebody else, sometimes having the common language and the awareness. My husband and I
mhm,
joke about there's a part of me that is really freaking hating on you right now. But
that's right.
it's funny, and it's like there's a part of me that sees why, and we can have this banter that's funny, but it's also a really, I think, healthier way to communicate. I'm really
Mhm.
having some anger now. I really see why, because I know I'm being difficult in this moment. And then as you each get that
Sure.
acknowledgement, but it's safer.
Yes, that's it. This is
Hmm.
all about safe, all
Yeah.
about being safer without needing all these protective mechanisms that ultimately create damage. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And there's a way out. There is a way out for most of us. And it's by looking in and by these processes or approaches and mechanisms to help us with that.
Hmm. I'd love for you to let listeners know where you're at, because I think you're in Orange County. Who all can you see? Where can they learn more about you, about your work, all of that stuff?
Well, I am in Orange County. My office is technically Huntington Beach. However, I do work virtually, and I work virtually all over the world
Good.
with people and help them with these kinds of processes. And my website, you could see a lot of my videos, and there's my podcast. So it's my name.com, TODDCREAGER.com. It's probably the best way to access me. It's very simple. My email is todd@toddcreager.com. So it's all about that. And I think, yeah, I mean, I only work virtually. So whether it's people very far from me or very near from me, it's all the same, and it works great. The EMDR, by the way, people go, how do you do EMDR virtually? I have a, I use Zoom sometimes, but I do a lot of work with the program called Easy EMDR, and we could do bilateral stimulation with eye movements. We could do kinesthetic. We could do sound. We could do.
Mhm.
It's amazing what you could do virtually these days. I have found it to be just as effective as when I worked in person.
Yeah, it is. And just speaking personally, I have not worked with you, but at one point, my therapist even had me buy the EMDR machine, which was like
Yeah,
$99. And I did the little
yeah. You
paddles in
could
my
do it.
hands, and
You
we
could
did it
do it.
on
It's
Zoom.
very, yeah, it's very calming. You could do it right there. That's a good way to do it too. I never,
Hmm.
you could have it and say, go do that now. But I have that program that you don't even need to do that.
Yep.
I also have programs. I mean, I have to say, I have, on this level, I have the Infidelity First Aid Kit,
Yes.
and it's all on my website. It's very reasonably priced.
Yeah, you got a lot of good stuff.
And then I have Healing Infidelity from the Inside Out, which is a whole bigger program that could be a great standalone or adjunct to working with someone like myself. And it's all on my website.
Yeah.
And I have other programs too on communication, but the infidelity ones, yep,
Yep.
that's, yeah.
It's good work. So thank
Thank
you
you.
for sharing your time, your insight, your wisdom. It was a great conversation. And listeners, I encourage you to pause, to go back, to re-listen to parts of this if you are curious about it, to even just do some basic Googling on internal family systems, on EMDR, and just get curious about what's possible for you, for your partner, for your relationship, or for your next relationship. And in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic week, and always remember to flaunt exactly who you are, because who you are is always more than enough. Sometimes I think the most important thing that you can do for yourself when you're walking this infidelity journey is to give yourself some hope, to literally give yourself a dose of hope, because it can feel like such a steep climb at times. That's why I started my Sanctuary of the Soul group program. It's truly that safe, sacred place where you can go whenever you need that jolt of hope, that clarity. Sometimes we need inspiration. Sometimes we need a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes we need somebody else just to hear us, somebody who's been through it too and who really, really understands. Sometimes we need practical tools. Sometimes we just need a place to scream or to let our hair down and laugh and to not think about infidelity anymore. If that sounds like something you could use, that dose of hope, clarity, and connection, you can get all that in my Sanctuary of the Soul program, and it's only $47 a month. $47 a month, you can cancel anytime. It's completely guaranteed. It is also safe. It's a truly small, safe step. Go to sparkleallseason.com, because isn't that what it's about? It's about sparkling all season, in the good times, in the bad times, when we're climbing and trudging up that hill, and when we're just relaxing and enjoying. Sparkleallseason.com. And I can't wait to see you there.
Tune in next time to Flaunt, Find Your Sparkle, and Create a Life You Love After Infidelity or Betrayal with Lora Cheadle every Wednesday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. Uncover the truth of what's possible for you on the other side of betrayal and develop the skills and strategies necessary to embrace the future and flourish today. Download your free Betrayal Recovery Toolkit at betrayalrecoveryguide.com.